my name is HAPruitt and I'm the author of the Anelthalien series. And in this video, I'm going to read the first chapter of Water Rising, the fourth book in the Anelthalien series. Well, I'm not going to read it because I'm still pregnant, still recovering from a broken rib, so breathing is hard, and reading a whole chapter would probably be really bad. But I'm going to have some help, and it will be read. But before I get to the reading, I want to say that the first chapter in each of the Anelthalien books is the backstory. And so it doesn't give anything away about the rest of the story. And the backstory is written in a way that doesn't give anything away that you don't find out from the book itself. So it's kind of like, if you knew the whole story, you would see how much it gives away, but it's written in a way that it doesn't give things away. So you can read, or you can listen to, I've made videos for each of the first chapters of the first 4 books, including this one. And so you can listen to the first chapter of each book without spoiling anything. If you haven't read the first 3 books, you can listen to this video, and it's not going to spoil anything for you, because it's not necessarily in order even. But the first chapter of each book relates to what happens thematically in the book, and so, yeah. So I hope that makes sense, and still, like, it's connected to the rest of the book, just doesn't spoil things. So, now I'm going to let my husband read the first chapter of this book, because he has better lungs than me right now. So here we go. Okay, we're going to see how far I get. Inciting incidents. Belinda stepped down from her carriage. She surveyed the small inn standing in front of her, then turned to face her driver. The old man noticed her movement and began to open his mouth, but instead knowingly nodded at Belinda's head tilt. His eyes flicked to the carriage cabin, then down to Belinda. "Hey, ma'am?" he called, as if she wasn't already engrossed in a silent conversation with him. "Yes, Amos?" "My old legs are stiff. Could you give me an arm?" "Of course, Amos. Would you like to join me for a meal?" As she allowed him to stabilize his short descent using her shoulders and arms, Amos puffed and wheezed in enormous effort. An amused grin lit Belinda's face, but she tried to send him a serious glance. Once Amos's legs had steadied, he panted, "Oh, no, ma'am. I'm old enough to know what meals I prefer, and to pack them, too." Belinda crossed her arms, but put one fist over her smile. "No offense meant at all, my queen," he apologetically assured her. Suppressing her amusement, Belinda nodded. "I didn't take any." "Very good." Amos patted his pocket. "I've packed some herring and dried tamar, and if it isn't an offense to you or your friend, I'd like to stretch out in the cabin." "That is all right. I am sure he will not object." "Good, good." Amos chuckled and hobbled to the carriage door. Belinda turned away before he opened it. The old man's voice immediately began bantering, but Belinda swiftly headed for the inn's door, and his voice quickly faded. Carefully pushing on the handleless handle, Belinda peered inside. Only one person, a young man busy cleaning tables, occupied the bright room. Belinda eased inside and silently observed her surroundings. 2 large windows displayed the street running along the front of the building and much of the village. Sunlight streamed in through the long windows and warmed the wooden tables, chairs, and counter. On the other side of the counter, a basin held a stack of wooden bowls, and at the other end, a cast-iron stove stood open and empty. "Oh, hello, ma'am." Belinda's distant eyes blinked once, then fell softly on the young man's startled face. His surprise ebbed, and in a very pleasant accent, he greeted her. "Hello, welcome to HAPruitt's Inn. Would you like a spot of tea?" "Yes, thank you. And do you have any meals at this time of day?" I'll see," he thoughtfully assured her, then headed to a doorway, past the end of the counter near the stove. When he vanished, Belinda casually strolled along one window until her carriage slid into view. Her eyes examined it for a few seconds. Then she tore her gaze away and meandered to the table closest to the stove. Almost as soon as she sat, a gasp pulled her attention up. "My chickens and bones!" cried the short, skinny woman heading her way. Her voice, brown hair, and brown eyes matched those of the boy, who stood slightly behind her, giving her a puzzled stare. "Regulus," she hissed to him. "Did you ask her order?" "Yes, Mum," he answered. "That's what I just said. Tea and a meal if we have any." "Oh, we have," she emphatically told her son, then switched her gaze to Belinda. "Good Queen Belinda." "What?" "Yes, Queen. Hush now, son," she whispered to his shocked stare, then restated. "Good Queen Belinda, it is the highest honour to serve you in our quaint inn. It's Itherium's best inn, I do tell you, and we can bring you anything you like." "Mum." "Regulus, please fetch some tea." "Oh, what sort is your preference, good Queen? We've all sorts. We're a tea shop, not a thing strong, just as you like." Belinda gave her a kind, approving smile. "What is your name?" "Oh, my bones and broth!" She practically giggled and held out her hand for Belinda to shake. "Regina. My name is Regina, and my son here is Regulus. Named after me he is. His father's gone, he was a trader. Had an excursion a week before Regulus was born. We were going to name him Seda after him, but when I got word his whole group didn't— Oh, ma'am, I am going on about matters I shouldn't. It is all right. I'm very sorry for your loss. Those closest to us never seem to fully leave us." "Oh, ma'am, you are as lovely— You are as lovely a heart, as they say. Thank you." She beamed at Belinda until her son interrupted the silence. "What tea would you like, ma'am?" "Oh, yes, tea, thank you, Regulus. You're a good boy." "Warm tea," answered Belinda, "and if possible, I enjoy a hearty dose of ginger brewed in it." "Lovely, ma'am. He'll see to it," Regina told Belinda and Regulus, who promptly nodded and hurried out of sight. The woman watched. Excuse me. The woman watched him, then continued to silently stare at the empty doorway until Belinda very subtly cleared her throat. "Oh, pardon me, ma'am. Did you say you'd fancy a meal?" "Yes. What would you like? Whatever you have ready is splendid." "Oh." Regina tossed a glance over her shoulder. "Or whatever you have on hand," Belinda suggested. "I am not the royal diner some expect. A bit of stew or bread is quite to my taste." "Oh, of course, ma'am, but I could cook you something much better." "Regina," she gently interrupted, "I know it is difficult to believe, but once, even a week-old morsel was a treasure to me, and I have never forgotten those times. Please, anything you have will bring me great delight." Regina's brow knitted together. "All we have is what's left of yesterday's service, bread and cool vegetable soup." "It sounds delightful." "Truly? Are you being true with me, ma'am?" Belinda nodded. "How much do I owe you?" "Oh, no, never, never would I. You are the good Queen Belinda who has done Anelthalien naught but good. You have no need to pay." Without waiting for a reply, Regina scurried away and left Belinda with her mouth slightly agape. Only a moment of quiet passed. Then the door flew open, and a group of men that each carried multiple packs and pelts swung their faces around. "Excuse me, ma'am, you serving?" "Cater, don't you know who that is?" "No, mate, I told you I'd never been to this speck of a village." The man who had interrupted Cater snatched his hat off and shoved it into his chest. "That's the Queen." "What, the good Queen Belinda herself?" Belinda waved to the three staring men. "Good day. Yes, I am Belinda of Bellalux. Are you having a fine day?" Before any of them could answer, Regina appeared with a loaded tray. "Hello, sirs," she called as she set Belinda's order in front of her. "Find yourself a seat. I'll only be a moment." The men simply continued standing by the door. Regina gave Belinda an apologetic yet tickled smile. "You truly are a sight to see in little Itherium," she quietly chatted. "Honestly, I never believed it, never dreamed it, that I'd serve a queen. Now, here's your bread, soup, and tea, and ma'am, it is a payment enough to serve it to you. Truly. Does it all seem to your taste? Do you require anything else?" "Thank you. This is lovely," Belinda assured her, but let her eyes dart to the men, then back to Regina's eager expression. "But if it is possible, could I have a room to—" After several seconds and a scrutinizing peek at the still staring group, Regina nodded, picked up the tray, and directed, "This way, ma'am." "Thank you," Belinda quietly replied as she stood to follow. Regina led her through the doorway and halfway down the hall. Stopping at a door, Regina balanced the tray while digging in her apron. Now, I am sorry I haven't anything finer, and I wanted to ask you for payment for it, but it's the best we have for staying alone. Oh, and I do hope you'll pardon all that. I can attest that seeing you here is a sight." She paused to twist the key, which she had finally found in the lock. "And I mean a wondrous sight, of course." Gesturing for Belinda to enter the little wooden room first, Regina sighed. "Oh, I forgot, this one hasn't a window. It is exactly what I hoped." Truly? Well, all right. Let me set this here, and I'll find a light." Regina hurriedly consented as she slid the tray onto the small table by the door. She began to dash away, but Belinda raised a hand to stop her. "Regina, could I trouble you for something else?" "Oh, no trouble, ma'am. Anything you would like is no trouble. A blanket, more bread, a pen and parchment." Regina gaped at her. "Do you have any? I will pay." No. We have ink and some sheets to write on. It's no trouble. I was only in a different thought. I've never been asked such a thing." Belinda understandingly nodded and explained, "I only wish to write a letter. I left Bellalux in the hands of my chamberlain, and wish to communicate some instructions for the castle's business." "Oh, of course, ma'am." Regina sighed in an impressed whisper, then trotted off.
Belinda dropped her eyes to the floor and turned her squint into the dim room. It was small, so the lantern hanging from the hall's low ceiling clarified most of its contents. A table and a chair stood by the door. A bed sat a few steps from the chair, and its opposite side almost touched the far wall. The only other shape, an open trunk, waited in the corner to receive the travelers' bags. Belinda nodded at it, and then slowly walked to the chair, sat, and began distractedly picking at the food. Enough time had passed for her to finish her soup and bread before Regulus appeared. "Mum hopes you'll pardon the slow service," he reported, as he placed a lit candle, parchment, and ink bottle, and quill in front of her. "We don't keep writing tools. She had to ask around." "Thank you, young man," she graciously replied, then quickly extracted a bag from her dress pocket. "Please, take this as payment for all your kindness, and please keep it hidden until I've gone. Your mother is refusing reimbursement, but I can't take and not repay." He nodded, squeezing the bag, as if trying to calculate the amount inside. "Yes, ma'am. Thank you." Switching it to his other hand, Regulus backed into the hall and shut the door. Belinda eyed the solid wood for a few moments, then abruptly snatched the top parchment and pen and started writing. Her quick cursive composed one line, then paused. Her eyes slid across the sentence, then her hand hurried to form the rest of the letter. Although she almost filled the space, Belinda finished soon. Gently waving the parchment so the ink would solidify into permanent words, she finished her tea. Once no dregs remained, Belinda cautiously dabbed the ink that formed her signature. Seeing no residue on her finger, Belinda folded the letter, used the bread knife to cut a piece off the soft wax of the candle, and then slipped her signet ring from her index finger. Very carefully, but as mechanically as if she had done so every day, Belinda used the wax, flame, and the ring to seal the letter and stamp it as her own. Then her movement slowed. She returned the ring to the same finger and lifted the knife to a small flame. As her unfocused eyes watched the residual wax drip back to its home, the other hand toyed with the letter. Even when all the wax had left the blade, Belinda continued to hold it. Eventually, her fingers slid away from the folded parchment to the blank one. They assessed the rough texture, halted, and spread flat, and finally gave the sheet one resolute pat. Suddenly, as if realizing she had wandered into her thoughts, Belinda snatched the letter, stood, and waved the knife in the cool, dark air before setting it on the tray. Her free hand jumped to the door handle, tightly gripped it, but didn't turn it. She inhaled, then released a deep breath, nodded, and opened the door. "Chicken's bones!" cried Regina, throwing her hand on her chest. "Oh, ma'am, pardon me, you startled me. Oh!" She gave her head a shake and then spun to face her. "Is everything all right?" "Yes, it was all wonderful," Belinda soothingly assured her. "Was? Have you finished then? Will you be needing more? Midday has come, so we've started early service, and we'll have a few more choices soon." "Oh, no, thank you. I do need to return to my travels, but I would... Belinda's eyes drifted to the letter. I do need these instructions to arrive at my castle at Bellalux as soon as possible. Do you know the best way to safely send it? Regina pursed her lips as she glanced at the letter. Then she declared, Regulus can run it. He's a trustworthy lad, I promise you, and a good worker. He does a good job, a direct job, and just as he's told. He can take it on the horse quicker than the letter runner. Belinda placed the letter in Regina's waiting hand. Thank you, she softly yet ardently told her. I am very grateful the Maker crossed our paths. Yes, ma'am, yes, Regina cried, then questioned, Is there anything else? Anything I can give you for your travels? Anything at all? Please let me assist you if I can. A sigh eased out of Belinda, but it carried relief. She nodded. Yes, some dried meat and fruits would greatly aid us. And... Anything? Could I have this? Belinda's fingers touched the quill, ink, and blank parchment. I will pay you for it. Oh, don't worry over it, Regina tried to breezily urge, but her face showed concern. Belinda swiftly exchanged the parchment on the table for a bag from her pocket. Use it very wisely to grow your inn in this city, she instructed, her voice casual, but her eyes intense. Then, breaking her narrowed stare from Regina's wide one, Belinda cradled the pen and the ink in one hand and picked up the sheet of parchment with the other. Please, if you meet me at my carriage with a small box for this and another for the food, I would be grateful. This has been Water Rising by HAPruitt, narrated by HAPruitt.
Okay.
And embellished by E.G. Pruitt screaming in the background. We hope you've enjoyed this reading and the coughing.
Yeah, sorry about the coughing. Okay. All right, so that was the first chapter of Water Rising, as you have been informed. And again, in the description below, I'll put the links to the other first chapters of the other books in the series that are out so far. But you can buy Water Rising on Amazon now, and you can buy the whole series, the first 4 books in the series on Amazon if you want to read the whole book. I hope that makes you want to read the book, and thank you for watching. Please like this video, please subscribe to my channel, please comment, please do all those things, and thank you for watching. Bye! If you want to know more about Anelthalien or HAPruitt, please follow me on Instagram at HAPruitt. You can find me on Amazon as an Amazon author, HAPruitt. Please watch my YouTube channel and all my cool videos on my channel, HAPruitt Anelthalien. You can find me on the Facebook page, HAPruitt Anelthalien. You can follow me on Goodreads by the name HAPruitt and the book Anelthalien, or you can go to my website where so much cool stuff about Anelthalien is. The website is HAPruitt.com.
Voice exercises.
Read the chapter title.
Inciting incident. Then down to Belinda. Interpretive camera.